Welcome to the CHCH Newsmakers podcast. I'm Rick Zamperin. If it's making news in Hamilton, Halton, and Niagara, across Canada or around the world, I'll talk about it here on Newsmakers. How much are you paying for auto insurance? If your answer is too much, you have company. And my guest today is here to tell you a big reason why. Michael Cardillo is a main investigator with Aviva Canada, and it is reporting a massive increase in what is known as staged collisions. Michael, thanks for joining us today on Newsmakers.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
What is a staged collision?
Well, staged collision is a dangerous insurance claim where criminals purposely stage accidents to profit from insurance payouts, whether it be the value of the vehicle, medical costs if they claim the injuries, towing, rental, etc.
So how are they getting these funds? They're crashing into innocent people and then making a claim and then getting money from that.
Yeah, the staged collisions have become very sophisticated, so they stage the entire thing to where it happens, how it happens, and it could be an innocent party or two parties that are associated with the staged collisions to make it happen. And they're becoming very sophisticated, like I said, in terms of how they crash it, where they crash it, to avoid any kind of detection from any insurance company, Aviva itself, to gain the profits of the money that's coming out for payouts.
How often is this happening?
It's happening on a regular basis, actually. I mean, we've seen staggering numbers, upwards to 400% increase in staged collisions, and Hamilton and surrounding areas is near 300%. So it's a really big problem, and I think it's important that we're highlighting it.
Why is it a big problem here and across the country? Is it because people are getting away from it? The word is spreading. The bad actors are saying we can capitalize on this.
Yeah, I think it's, social media has something to do with it as well, because I think a lot of people are wanting to get out of some leases, some of their financial struggles right now. And, it's a recruitment process. Organized crime and organized criminals take to social media like TikTok and Instagram and recruit vulnerable individuals that want to get rid of their vehicles, and they're telling them how they do it and to contact them, and they actually get a referral fee if it goes to plan. But I think the important thing to understand is if you do get into that kind of stuff and agree to stage a collision or commit this fraud, that you could be left holding the bag, right? Your costs of the vehicle, if it doesn't work out, then you're stuck continuing to pay the lease payments, and your car's gone. So
yeah, it's a double whammy at that
correct.
point. Yeah. We do have a couple videos that we'll show throughout the podcast, and then I'll get you to speak to those. But before we get to that, as we said, this is upwards of 270% increase in Hamilton, 400%, across the country. Canadians are concerned about this as well. Yeah,
they are, and I think recently we had a survey that Canadians are very concerned with staged collisions. It's actually the most that's on their mind, understanding the dangers behind it, and this could happen at any point in time. Highways and intersections, wherever. So yeah, they're very concerned, and I think it's up 14% of people that have actually said that they're afraid of the staged collision aspect of fraud.
This is their number one concern in many regards as well.
Yeah, higher than repair or fraudulent repairs, things like that. So they are very concerned, and it's like you said, it's the number one reason.
That says a lot. So if you're an innocent party in this, you've been in an accident, it is an emotional, startling time, especially if you've never been in an accident. Are there red flags that those innocent individuals should be looking at to say, wait a minute, something's up here?
Yeah, and you know what? It's tough when it happens, right? Because you are shook. You think you're in a legitimate accident, but there's some red flags that we try and tell the public and the innocent people that are involved that, erratic driving just before the incident, when the incident happens, people avoid trying to call the police, trying to talk you out of calling your insurance company or call the police, and really anything that's rehearsed at the scene. More people coming to the scene at a quick period of time, tow trucks arriving at a quick period of time, and like I said, anybody that's on the scene, very rehearsed, something that doesn't seem right. You do what you need to do, and you need to call the police and call your insurance company to make sure that you're handling things appropriately, and take as much pictures as you can, and remember exactly what happened in the incident, so you can tell your insurance company or tell the police. So if it is a staged collision where the other person caused the incident on purpose, or it's planned out, then we'll be able to have those things that happen on the scene to differentiate the two.
Right. So if you take photos or videos, you can even after the fact say, okay, something went awry here, right?
Yeah. I mean, especially if you are the innocent party, and police will listen, and so will the insurance company. If you take the necessary steps at the scene, chances are you'll be able to differentiate between a legitimate accident and not a legitimate accident or something that was staged. So yeah, it's very important that they do those things and do their own due diligence at the time of the crash.
For these staged collisions, do they usually happen in a particular place on the road, i.e. an intersection or the highway, or are we talking anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the sophistication behind staged collisions now have been increasing from years in the past, right? So gone are the days where you can detect damage on a vehicle that's not a vehicle. It's a post, and they claim it as a hit and run from a vehicle.
Right.
Nowadays, it can happen anywhere. We have video from the highway, an intersection, a live intersection. So I think they plan it out to make sure that they know what's going on at those intersections. You see in the video that you're going to show, they canvass certain areas as well to make sure. And I think the worst part about that is sometimes they do have it on the highway, like I said, and they call the police, they call fire trucks, they call ambulance, first responders come to the scene, and they block many lanes of the highway. And as you know from Ontario, traffic, commuters, things like that.
Yeah, there's a domino effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So here's one of the first of two videos that we're going to show. So this is on the highway. I believe this is 407, 410.
Yes.
And so what happens in this regard to make you realize that this is a staged collision?
Yeah, well, you can see if the beginning of that video, you saw that first vehicle come onto the highway and go right into the guardrail.
Right.
And you'll see a follow vehicle.
Yes.
Follow up quickly. Now, what you see on that video is the driver of the original vehicle gets out, goes into the follow vehicle, and the individual in the follow vehicle gets out and goes into the main vehicle that crashed. That's the insured getting out of a vehicle into the crash vehicle so they can call the police and continue with the story.
Wow.
Right? And people that are orchestrating this are the ones that are crashing these cars because they're comfortable, they understand where they need to hit the vehicle at a certain point to, like I said, go under detection.
At a certain speed, I would imagine.
Correct, yeah. And that's the other part, too, is that we are seeing high-speed crashes that end up being staged collisions. And whether the individual was innocent or not, typically when it's a high speed, they're both in on it, and they hit it at a certain time, certain place, just so they can pass the original story off to the insurance company to make it legitimate.
Right. So is that the case in our second video that we're going to show here?
I believe the second video is exactly, and so as you see here is an intersection. And you'll see an individual stopped at the light, and you'll see the crash happen. Another individual will come and crash right into the person waiting at the stoplight at a pretty high speed.
Yeah.
So they are getting, a lot more riskier in the speed that they're going, right?
Right.
And they understand that the reward that they can get from this is worth that.
So in this case, are they in cahoots, the car that stops and the car that crashes into the stopped car?
Yes, this one in particular, or they're in cahoots. You'll see, longer in the video, you'll see multiple cars coming to join to see if, they hit it at the right spot. Tow trucks arrive, they clear one vehicle out of the scene, and at the end, there's about 4 other vehicles that arrive, park in the parking lot, 20 people gather, understand, look at the vehicle, make sure that the damage is correct, and then they leave. That becomes false reporting to the police. That becomes a lot of things that happen just to orchestrate something and just to get money from insurance companies. Yeah. In both of those incidents, the individuals claimed injuries. In one instance, the insured wasn't even in the car at the time to claim those injuries. So you can imagine how much money they could possibly get from these crashes.
Right. So you, as a main investigator with Aviva Canada, you have some, video as tools to help you along. How do you determine that this is a staged collision? Yeah,
there's multiple things that we conduct in our investigations. Whether it be video is strong. Obviously, you have the smoking gun at that point with the video that's there, and understand it doesn't match up with the story that they're telling. There's other reasons and other tactics that we use, whether it's statements or the use of phone records or any kind of documentation that can validate that they were present at the time, or a lot of things happen, or a lot of things that you can get from a vehicle as well, right? So whether it's the download of the vehicle to understand the speeds, or seat belts, airbags, flags, things like that the vehicle will tell you that can point you in the direction of where you need to go from a staged collision perspective.
Yeah.
And with them being more sophisticated, it takes a lot of, investigating, understanding, speeds and understanding the crash patterns that happen. So we rely on a lot of the stuff that we have at our disposal and our tools at our disposal to, come up with enough evidence to make a denial of the claim.
So with so many of these staged collisions happening now, again, a 400% increase from 2024 to 2025, 270% spike in Hamilton, are you looking at every accident through the lens of this could potentially be a staged collision? Is that step one?
It's tough because there's a lot of claims out there, and we don't want to put an innocent customer through this, right? And this is the important thing, is that, you can't investigate absolutely everything that happens in certain areas, but we have ways to kind of detect them at the front end. If it meets certain characteristics or certain rules in a claim that can point us in that direction. And like I said, I want to make it clear, we're trying to protect innocent customers as well at Aviva, and make sure that they avoid these erratic drivers on the road, but also we don't want to put an innocent customer through the ringer on a statement and a long-tailed investigation. So we do a pretty good job at the beginning stage to understand some red flags when a claim does come in order to push it towards investigation.
So once you determine that, okay, this collision here, there's no way it's going to be a staged collision, we're going to go through the regular process. But those that do have a red flag or two, once you initiate that investigation, how long does it usually take? Are we talking days, weeks, months?
It depends on the cooperation of the insured as well, right? Because we are asking for documentation, we're asking for evidence to support the claim. We're always looking to pay out claims. I mean, that's why insurance is there. We pay out legitimate claims, and we pay out a ton of legitimate claims. But when you get into the red flags that we've put in place to make sure that we investigate the right ones, there's a process in place where a statement takes place and documentation. But we look to close out investigations within a time frame that's reasonable, right? But every investigation is different, and we need the cooperation of the insured to move those things a lot quicker.
Right. One could be way more complex than the other, which is obviously going to take a lot more time.
Absolutely. You're getting into witnesses at the scene, passengers in the scene, in the car, third party. So there's a lot of statements that come into effect. If police were on scene, we'd contact the police as well. So there's a lot of moving parts. So it depends on the complexity of the case to determine how quickly we either move forward with the denial or move to proceed to adjust the claim and pay out the claim.
How long have you been a main investigator for?
I've been doing investigations. I've been at Aviva for 16 years, and I've been in the investigative space for 13 or 14 of those years. Okay,
so how many staged collisions would you have investigated?
Many. Over those years, I would say upwards to 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have an all-star case where you figured it out?
Yeah, you know what? I think one of those videos was pretty good, and it's recent, right? So, actually that one was a colleague of mine's investigation. And, it works out well when you have the evidence there, right? It's not much of an investigation after that. You go through the statements and lock them down to a story. But, there's sophistication everywhere. And, the big ones that you feel good about is the ones where you can prove that they've tied up first responders, where they tie up highways and they come there and injuries are are being claimed, and plus with that video that it never actually happened. And I think that's the key message here as well, is that they are tying up these first responders, so they can
who could be responding to an actual emergency.
Correct, and that's a big thing, and that's just one. Imagine the other ones that go undetected, that don't get video. How many times they come to the scene where they could be going to an actual emergency.
Earlier you said Aviva Canada and any insurance provider is wanting to protect everyone that obviously they're covering. There is an impact to this, right? Through higher premiums, more crashes. These fraudsters get away with some cases. That's having an impact on people who are paying for these insurance rates.
Absolutely, and I think that's why it's important to highlight it. Right, it's getting a lot more than usual. Right, you heard the numbers, the stats don't lie. $3 to $5 billion kind of fraud in the insurance industry. Right, so that's premiums for innocent people, right?
Sure.
Innocent customers.
Yeah.
So, we do our best. Aviva does their best to try and stop this from happening and make sure that we protect the innocent customers, not only from staged collisions, but for the premiums, right? And it's important that everybody understands the problem that we're at. And, you can never have a claim for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and you see that your insurance is continuously going up. And these are the reasons, is that organized crime groups are making this very difficult. They get profit from the money in staged collisions, and we're just trying to do a really good job of making sure we limit that, and not just staged collisions, but fraud in general.
For those staged collisions and everything under the sun when it comes to, fraudulent behavior, what is the penalty?
Yeah, well, we try and get law enforcement involved. We do work very closely with some law enforcement to bring cases to them to lay appropriate charges for fraud. And they do a really good job of doing that as well. But, right now you see some of the penalties that, the risk is not greater than the reward. So that's why they continue to do this. They continue to push the envelope on that because of that reason. So can some of those, some of them be bigger? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But unfortunately right now they do their best to investigate or charge individuals that are part of this, but we'd like to see a little bit more or bigger of a change where the risk or the penalty becomes a lot greater, so we could stop this.
I would imagine similar to something like stunt driving, if an individual is charged with fraud related to auto insurance, it's very tough for them to get auto insurance again. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, they would be able to get insurance. It would just be at a higher premium.
Right.
But it does, affect their future of insurance, right? We do make sure that we log it as that, or make sure that we report on that, whether it's fraud or a denial of a claim. It would end up on their report or their driver's history that if they get insurance somewhere else, it would say that. So they'd be able to get insurance in Ontario, but it would be at a different premium and a higher premium.
Right. How much higher would it be? We're talking like double, triple, quadruple?
Pretty significant, let's put it that way. And I couldn't give an actual number of what it is, but it would be substantial.
Is this the biggest concern in the insurance industry? Not necessarily stage collisions, but just the fraud aspect.
Yeah, fraud is huge. It's huge right now. And, over the years, you saw that theft was a big problem.
Yes.
Right? They would export vehicles and, you get into homes just to get the keys and things like that, and it's worth a ton of money somewhere else, right? So if you export a proper exportation of a vehicle can get whoever takes the keys or steals the vehicle certain money, right? So money talks. Like I said, we have insurance companies. Aviva have deep pockets. They know where and how to get it. But fraud in general, whether it's stage collisions, theft, it's a big problem. And again, back to the premium increase, it all takes account to upping premiums for the innocent customers that we have.
Aside from highlighting this fact, how is the system kind of fighting back? How are insurance companies like Aviva, how are law enforcement kind of fighting these fraudsters?
Yeah, it's things like this, right? Like highlighting the problem, making our name known out there to the innocent customers out there, to make sure that everybody knows and become visible of the problem. And I think at Aviva, we do have ongoing conversations. The department in Aviva have ongoing conversations with government, trying to push some of the initiatives that we want for them to take action on some of this. And law enforcement's doing a great job. There's some, you hear of busts every day on, car thefts and stage collisions and rings, organized crime rings. So they do a great job as well. And I think more of that and more highlighting of that is very important.
Can innocent people, we'll just call them that, protect themselves through dash cam video and having that kind of apparatus in their vehicle? Yeah,
I think anything that they feel that will protect them, then they can do, because you do have dash cam that'll see whether an individual backed into them, right? But they say that the innocent person rear-ended them. They see a lot of that going on. You see, numerous vehicles where people throw themselves on a vehicle, and unfortunately, if you didn't have dash cam to see that, they would say that you ran into them, and you would be held accountable for that. They would claim injuries for something that didn't happen. So again, it's a domino effect on certain things, on certain aspects of fraud, especially when it comes to insurance.
Yeah. A lot of vehicles have cameras front and back now. Would it be helpful to you to have these vehicles record all the time instead of buying a secondary kind of dash cam? Make your job easier, at least.
It would make our job easier for sure. And I mean, the manufacturers do a great job as long as we have authorization to pull some of the cameras.
Right, there's some privacy concerns.
Correct,
right?
Yeah. And you'd have to get authorization from, the insured or the owner of the vehicle to obtain that. But yeah, it would be great. The CCTV footage, if you can get it, is really good. And I mean, businesses are reluctant sometimes, but most of the times they do give that up as well, which is very helpful. Very helpful when you have a crash at that similar incident or that intersection that comes up a lot of the times. Yeah. So it is important, and if people can record, then that's great. And we hope that it never happens. We do. We hope you don't get involved in an incident, whether it's a legit one or staged. But you can protect yourself from these criminals that try to hit your vehicle on purpose or throw themselves at your vehicle
and then try to cash in.
Correct.
Michael, appreciate the time. Fascinating topic. Hopefully you're not investigating too many of these going forward, but it sounds like you're going to be a busy guy.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Fascinating conversation. That is a wrap for the Newsmakers podcast. A huge thanks to the all-star cast behind the scenes. If you like today's episode, click the thumbs up, hit subscribe. You can leave a comment as well. Catch the Newsmakers podcast on chch.com/podcasts and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.